Welcome to My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson, a journey into the deepest teachings of Torah and their application to our personal, emotional, and psychological lives.
A good tavach, a good week. We continue our journey in the life-changing Sefer Tanya. This program is made possible by Rena Lights LLC, and it's in honor and memory of Rabbi Yosef Halevi Weinberg Olav Hashalom, Moshe Pinchas HaKohen Katz Olav Hashalom, and Rabbi Yael HaKohen Khan Olav Hashalom. It's also in schus and merit Rav Zevi Cheskel HaKohen and Risha Katz La'edich Yomim V'Shanim Tevis for many long and healthy years. So we are close to the end of Perek Chav Gimel, chapter 23, and talking about the unbelievable quality, Maila, of Torah, even over mitzvahs. And the Alter Rebbe, in a very organized and structured way, methodical way, goes from step to step in understanding this quality. The context is, because we're talking about human beings, the neshamas that have come down into this world, which is subject to all the tzimtzumim, the concealments of the divine. So though in reality, ein eid milvadeh, there's nothing but God, but we don't feel it. So how can we experience that yichud of Anechi Hashem Elokecha and La'yil L'cha L'kim Acherim, total unity and utter rejection of any form of duality? The answer is because we're given Torah and mitzvahs. So first, in the first half of the Perek, he spoke about mitzvahs. Ramach Pikun, the 248 positive mitzvahs, are the Evarim de Malka, the 248 organs, divine organs, so to speak. And explained how that's an extension of the king himself, the organs. And those are the mitzvahs. Ratzon Elyon. Torah, Araisa v'Kudshe B'richa Kul Echad. It says even more than that. It's not just the organs, it's one. Because God and His Chochmah and His Ratzon are one. So when we learn Torah, you're not just fulfilling God's will, and by extension becoming a chariot, a vehicle, a makova, to these Evarim, to the divine organs and limbs. But much more than that, you're connecting to the very King himself through Torah. As we discussed at length in the previous classes, like he said, it's that's what's always so essentially, it's not just his will that you're fulfilling, but you are one with that will when you're learning Torah, because that is hu ritzeinei v'chachmasi is baruch, which is one with him. Then he added v'loy oid, another element, that the yichur of the nefesh l'kisa and its garments. Remember here also the higher garments of thought and speech, which is another quality, that not just action, like in mitzvahs, are connecting to are fulfilling God's will, but it's also thought and speech. And the divine soul, their connection is to a level of godliness that is higher than the godliness that manifests in the worlds, even in the higher worlds. Not just elam tachtenim, even in the highest worlds, because there the energy is limited. Because when you're learning Torah, so the Rasna Elyon, which is God's fundamental higher supernal will, is revealed in your nefesh. That's what you're consumed with right now. You're not thinking about your own existence. You're not thinking about survival. You're not thinking about small-minded, petty matters, mundane matters, even if they're important. Your mind is completely consumed, and your being is completely consumed, and your garments, machshav dibur, your thought and speech are completely consumed with what? With Ratzon Elyon. Hu atera atzma. That's the Ratzon Elyon. Elam esalyenim, however, the world, mekablim chayusim ervachayis and mishach ma'atera shuritzene v'chochmasi is barach. The world, where's that energy? Their energy is coming from the Torah, and you're going into the Torah. So and the Torah therefore could exceed kulam b'chochmas im kena chochmas sheyat Torah lamayla mekulam. Because kulam, he's teaching everything in existence comes from Chachma, from the Chachma of Torah, so Torah is higher. The Hira is Baruch HaNikra, save of Kalamit. And that is the level of Sevuv Kalam. And as we know, Sevuv Kalam relates to Ratzon Elyon, God's will. Mamala Kalam relates to God's so-called attributes or faculties as they relate to existence. Chochmah, Bina, Das. Here he's interestingly connecting Chochmah to Ritzeinei, because it's not just God's wisdom, it's also God's will. But a will that has a wisdom around it. Because the Torah is a structure, has an intelligent structure. But at the end of the day, it's God's will. So it's a manifestation of Sevuv Kalam. Just to give an example, in addition to what I've already explained on this, you want to build a home. And the same is true with anything, a business, anything you want to do in this world, you want to structure. So obviously you have to want it, and then you have to invest in it. So you want to build a home, okay, you sit down, hire an architect, you hire a contractor, and they in turn hire who they need, and you plan out the whole blueprint. What is this home going to look like? Now you're Ratzon, the person who wants that home, who's paying for it, who's the home, let's say, building a home for him and his family. So obviously you care about every detail, and it's all driven by your will. Now, when they start building the actual house, there's a lot of energy that goes into that. As I said, there are different workers, different experts. As a matter of fact, those experts may know things that even the owner or the builder, meaning the person who wants the home, the Baal Abayis, will say, may not know. He uses them. My point is not just to make the point that you need other skills. And they're invested and they work on it. Their drive is, of course, to make a parnasa and a livelihood and to create a beautiful home. So there's invested energy in there. But it's all kulam. It's all coming from your first intention. If you decide you don't want to have this home anymore, everything stops. And the whole project wouldn't have begun. So there can be people who get involved, they want to understand, what is this home, this beautiful mansion, palace that you're building? And they come and they study it, and they look at how it's being built, and they discuss with the architect and the contractor. But until they don't talk to you, the balabas, they don't really know the full intention. Because even the architect and the builders, even the experts, it's still a means to an end. The same idea here. Mishnah says in Sanhedrin, why was the human being created last? When it's the crown jewel of creation. So one of the answers given is, because hakol muchal l'suda. You don't bring a guest to the table and then set the table. First you set the table. God created the world 6 days. He created Yehi Oyer, Yehi Rakia, everything He created, a beautiful world, a Gan Eden. And then and He placed Adam Achav, He created Adam Achav on the 6th day. That's the purpose. He built His home, not just to build a home. It's a beautiful home. But it's a means. So the energy that went into building the home is an energy. But it's an energy that's limited, firstly, to the energy that is invested in this home. Secondly, even that energy is a means to the purpose of it all. If the human being wasn't created, or the human being didn't come into this world, the whole thing has no reason. So when a person connects and understands, let's take science, understands the wisdom of the world, how the world was created, and you go through the mind of God, as many scientists call it, the brilliance of the design of every detail and intricate detail of a flower, of any species, whether it's mineral, vegetable, or animal. Beautiful. There's wisdom, tremendous wisdom. But then you go and say, but I want to know what's the reason that He created it all. I want to speak to the artist, not just to the art. I don't just want to see His wisdom and how He built it. I want to know what's the purpose of it all. There you need to learn Torah. Because Torah tells you what's the Ratzon Hashem, to have a dira b'tachtenim, to transform this world through Torah and mitzvahs. That you need to learn Torah. So when you're learning Torah, you're going to the balabas. You're not just learning and understanding the existence and the nature of existence. What you're really learning is the very source itself. And you're connecting with that. And that's Ratzon Elyon. It's not just the Chachmah that's invested in creation, what we call Chachmah Ta'atah, which is a tremendous wisdom. And it's a Gilei Elokus, like Mamala Kalalman, that manifests within existence. But number one, it's a limited manifestation, even the highest worlds. And secondly, it's a means to an end. When you're learning Torah, you're learning the end itself. Because you're learning God's plan in all of this, His intention in all of it. That's when they said, who? Like he said, who Torah atzma. So then he continues. And now explains the difference between Mala Kalam and Sevav Kalam. This is saying Yisbarach Hine Hanikra Sevav Kalam. This is called Sevav Kalam. What does Sevav Kalam mean? So the Alter Rebbe explains later in chapters 46 and 48 that it doesn't mean surrounds, it means it's beyond, it transcends existence. When they're building the home, the architect and the contractor and all the experts and all the designers, they're involved in engaging, creating the... But above it all hovers, and I say above, something transcends it all. And what is that? That's the Ratzon of the Balabayas, of the owner of it all. That's what's driving it all. Every detail comes down to fulfilling what is his bigger plan. He didn't create a building just to have a building. He created a building to have a home for his family, for himself. Same thing with Hashem. He built it all. There should be a dira, a home, b'tachtenim, a home for whom leis barach, a mishkan down v'shachanti b'seichel. So there's the details of the building itself, but then there's the vision. In a way, you can explain the difference between Moshe and Betzalel. Moshe was expressing God's vision of the Mishkan. Betzalel was the architect. So the Gemara tells us, and we see from the Seder, that when Moshe told Betzalel to build a Mishkan, he began by first telling him to build a Kalim. He says the first thing, the Aron, the Ark, and Menorah, and the Mizbeach. Then he talks about building the structure, the Yerias. Says Betzalel to Moshe, that's not the way you build a home. That's not the way you build a building. First you build the building, then you bring the Kalim in. You build the Kalim, where are you going to put them? You don't bring the furniture first and then you build a house around it. You build the house, then you bring the furniture into it. And Moshe says, you're right. He says, that's the Seder Eilam. So what was Moshe's Havamina? Moshe didn't understand that. Because Moshe was the vision, was the Ratzon Elyon itself. What's the kavanah of the Mishkan, not the Yediyas? Obviously in Kedusha, everything has a kavanah la'atzmei, as the Ragat Shavar explains. But it's about serving. The two opinions that Ramban says the Iker Chayfetz, the Iker Keli, the primary Keli was the Aron, Torah, and Rambam says the Iker is Mizbeach Karbonos. But it's all about serving, the Aveda Hashem in the Mishkan. So Moshe was speaking about the Aveda, like we say by Shemitah, says V'shisavei al ha'aretz, V'shav sa'aretz Shabbos l'Hashem, and then he says Kishei Shanim Tizeh Sadecha, and then again says Shana Hashviz. Why do you begin with the first thing you have to do is 6 years, you have to plow the land, work the land, and then comes Shemitah, the 7th year. Here it says right away, as soon as you enter the land, V'shav sa'aretz. And you say it afterwards anyway, Shana Hashviz, Shabbos l'Hashem. Says the Alter Rebbe, because they begin with the Kavanah. Seif Maaseh b'machshava tchila. What's the machshava tchila? Shemitah. Like it says, Shammai would put away Zocher L'Shem HaShabbos, the Ramban says it's a mitzvah even on Sunday. So if he found a mana yofa, something and good food, he put it away for Shabbos. Because the Kavanah is Shabbos, right away, in the beginning. Then comes the Seder of building the building. So when you connect to the Ratzon Elyon through Torah, is teaching you what the Balabayas Lebirazu, the owner, the creator of the world, wants. The worlds reveal what God produced, his product. So you're learning the product, you're connecting to the product through existence, but you connect to the producer, the creator, through Torah. That's Sevav Kalam. So it's not a specific world. It's not energy going to specific details. That's already the building itself. It's going to Sevav Kalam. Shehi b'chinas ma she'ena yochel islabes b'tei chalmen. And now he explains. This is a type of divine energy which is unable to become immersed with the worlds. Lislabish, immersed, manifest, enclosed Because you're talking about that big picture. When you come to see the building, you have to, right now the plumber has to build the pipes. The electrician has to make sure the electricity is the right way. That's a very particular job. It's not the overseer, the one who's supervising it. And especially the one that's supervising it all, the owner, the boss, the balabayas of it all, that's Sevav Kalam. Mamal Kalam is the specific functions and the specific details that you're dealing with. So that's not Yochel Islabis B'tei Chalmin, even the highest worlds. Rach Mechaya Umeir L'mayla. Sevav Kalam is Mechaya. It provides energy and vitality from above, B'bchinas Makiv, in a transcendent fashion. Not directly involved. The owner, the boss, who commissioned the whole project in the first place, doesn't have to even be there on the site. Doesn't have to be involved in any way. Obviously, when it comes to creation, God is involved in every way, but I'm talking about the level of the divine. Like we say, Lav Urchen de Malka Lishta B'mila de Hadyeta. 6 days of the week when the Eibishter is creating, that's Mila de Hadyeta. That's mundane matters. Yes, he's investing, and of course he's the creator. But Shabbos Lashem, that's when you have God without those levushim as a creator. You're going back v'yechul hashamayim v'aretz v'chol tzvam. L'mayla b'bchinas makiv. And when do you access that? V'hi l'tzeni yizbarach hanikra sevav kalamin. And this very transcendent energy, transcendent, not imminent, is precisely what becomes absorbed by. HaMislabeshes benefesh. One second. Let me just make sure I got all the language here. Oh, we already said, and then he says, again the Alter Rebbe says. In other words, if I count correctly, 1, 2, 3, or 4 times already, because he wants to explain that we're not just talking about a manifestation of God's will, which is the mitzvahs. We're not just explaining creation itself, which is the product of God's will. But if you want to go to the deepest place of understanding God himself, the producer himself, that's that the amistabeshes benefesh v'levusha b'bchinas gilei mamish k'se'eskim b'divrei Torah. And this transcendent level is precisely and exactly what becomes absorbed by and fully revealed in the divine soul and its garments at the time of Torah study. Because what are you immersed in? You're not immersed in mundane matters, for sure not. You're not even immersed in the design and wisdom of God in nature. Mamal Kalaman. You're absorbed and immersed in the Ratzon itself of the boss, of the owner. So imagine, God did not give us the Torah, Chaz v'Shalom, you wouldn't have access to that. You could extrapolate a bit. You'd have access to the art, to the product, and through the product you could come and understand a lot of tremendous wisdom. But here you have access to the Balabayas himself. But now comes a question. Okay, that's what Torah says, but do we feel it? We all know, do you feel such a level when you learn Torah? Lahavdil, some people say, I learned Torah, it's very brilliant, and I'm being told it's godly wisdom, but I don't feel different than when I learn another wisdom. So the Alter Rebbe right away qualifies in his thorough fashion. And he quotes a Gemara Megillah, based on the story of Daniel. The story of Daniel. The Megillah, Gemara Megillah is right at the beginning, Gimel Amud Aleph. 3a. So So it's the pasuk in Daniel Yud Zayin 10:7. For the isi ani Daniel levadi es hamara, v'anoshim asher hayu imi leiro es hamara. That Daniel says, I alone saw the vision, but the people that were with me did not see it. So since they saw, the Gemara asked, if they didn't see it, why did they tremble? Even though they didn't see it, their mazel saw it. Their mazel means a part of their soul sensed it. So they didn't feel exactly, they didn't see it, but its impact on them was there. So there are many times you don't experience something directly, but it doesn't mean it doesn't impact you. So Alter Rebbe is saying that. Now, why taka don't we see it? We'll talk about in a moment. But bottom line is that there is that experience. You are experiencing it. So your so-called higher self, that inner part of you, a dimension of you, is experiencing it. So why taka aren't we allowed to fully integrate it in a way that we can be conscious of it? Says the Alter Rebbe in the bracket, let's first do the first half. And it's precisely because you don't see it, that a person doesn't see it, that's what allows you. Yochel Lizbel, you can contain it. You're able to contain it. Because if it was full with the full glory, Sev of Kalam, at the end of the day, we're human beings. We're also created in the world of Mamala Kalam. We're defined people, mortals, with structures and containers. So Teda Taka takes us to a place that we access and connect with the Creator Himself. But we're also living in this home. So even though we're the purpose of it all, but we live in the home and we move from one room to another room and we use its functions. The home was built commensurate to our needs. So as such, if it was there, the Sefer Kalam would shine in full glory. When we learn Torah, we wouldn't be able to contain it. It would overwhelm us. So it actually is part of the process, that it should be in a way that we experience it and our mazel senses it. So there's a part that we feel its effects on us. And that's why when a person learns Torah, we'll say, where do you see the effects? A person learns Torah, they're learning about God. They're not learning about themselves. That's why Chassidus says, when you learn science, you learn Chochmas Chitzenius, you become more arrogant, more ego. You say, one second, a lot of people learn science, not because necessarily science causes you to be more arrogant. You can be very humble scientists too. Is because what's happening is you're learning about existence, about yourself, where you come from, what makes you tick, what are the building blocks of existence. You're learning about the yesh, so you become even more yesh. Again, you can still be humble, but what you're learning about is existence. So you're becoming more of existence. As a matter of fact, you've mastered it even. When you're learning about Torah, you're learning about ayin, not about yourself. You're learning about God, beyond yourself. So yes, you can learn Torah, God forbid, and be arrogant, but the real purpose of Torah is to create bittul. And that's where you see the effect of Sefer Kalam. You're not learning about, if you talk to the contractor or the architect of the building, you learn tremendous wisdom from that. But when you talk to the owner, to the one who commissioned them, the one who appointed them, there you're completely humbled. You see, wow, completely different reality. Because Mamala Kalam, at the end of the day, you're discussing God on your terms. It's still godliness. And still Vayahu Alikim, connected to the Transcendent. But when you're engaging with the Transcendence itself, Torah, you're learning about something that's higher than existence. That's called Sefer Kalam. And it affects you even though you may not consciously feel it. The very gili. Mashenkim Bel Yenim, which is not the case in the upper worlds. In the higher worlds, there you don't have Sefer Kalam like you have in Torah, but there the gili is stronger. Because there, that's the purpose of those Yenim, that they should have a gili elikus. It's dafke below, where we come into this world, that we need to have it contained in a way that we should be able to experience it. And with this, the Alter Rebbe then concludes sorry, no, it didn't conclude yet. So now that we covered that, that's the brackets, he continues. Ubezeh yuvan. And with this he's going to say, yuvan, lama godla ma'ed mailas ha'esek b'teri yesem ekol ha'mitzvos. And with this we'll understand why Torah is so great, the quality and the virtue of Torah than all other mitzvahs. Remember, before we learned about mitzvahs. Va'afila mitfila, and even from prayer. Shehi yichud el misalyenim, which is a very high level. Prayer creates, as the Kabbalah explains, a yichud el misalyenim, the upper worlds to be united, to merge together. And now you'll understand why I brought oil misalyenim, because tefillah, mitzvahs, you could say, okay, mitzvahs is mitzvahs down in this world. And you're connecting them to Evarim de Malki, you're becoming a vehicle, and merkavit to that. So Torah is higher than that, we've explained. But what about oil misalyenim, and the yichud of oil misalyenim that tefillah accomplishes? Torah is even greater than that, like we just said, because it's higher than the gili of Mamal Kalam and oil misalyenim. Because only Torah does not have the hester upon him at all, the concealment. All it is a raisa v'kutshe bricha kul echad. Okay. So, to sum up, the power of Torah is immense. It allows us, and now we understand why Torah is so important. It allows us to connect to the Creator Himself. Without that, we can connect His creation. We can align His creation to His will, like servants. But a servant doesn't necessarily understand the master, the king. Torah allows us to understand Hashem, and to unite with His mind, and to unite with His rotzen, so to speak. And with that, we'll stop here, and we'll, of course, review it and discuss it more. This has been Tanya Applied. Go to tanyaapplied.com for this and the previous programs. Everyone have a very good tevach, good week.
This has been My Life, Tanya Applied with Rabbi Simon Jacobson. Please join us again next week. Visit chasidusapplied.com for archived classes and more resources.